Welcome to Anime Fanfiction Audiobook. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Chapter 3 Soul King Development System. Ikaros, Shinso. Clang. The short sword in Laud's hand suddenly burst out with a dazzling light. A cold light pierced through the air in an instant, with it a sharp aura that caused one's heart to palpitate. It swept past several hundred meters of space with a speed that naked eyes could not capture. Boom. Wherever sword passed by, the concrete floor of the entire street and the shops on both sides were split into two. The 6 hollows, who had been lined up in a row, did not even have time to react before they were cut in half by the extremely fast and incomparably sharp sword. Pooh! Blood gushed out like a fountain, splashing high into the air. Then, it fell down like torrential rain, dyeing the entire street red. Ah! Laud put the sword back into the sheath, looked at the great damage he had caused, and said lightly, "Sorry, I used too much force." Gulp. Jack swallowed hard and could not help but feel a bit of fear. What happened tonight was far beyond his imagination, and it even caused the worldview he had created for more than 20 years to collapse. So, there was really a god in this world. When Jack came back to his senses, he found that the mysterious man had disappeared. Just like when he came, he had disappeared without a trace. It's over. Jack lay limply on the ground, his eyes lifeless as he looked at the streets. Queens. In front of an unknown grocery store, Laud suddenly appeared. He pushed open the wooden door and slowly stepped inside. Although this grocery store wasn't big and there weren't many people coming here, it was the best hidden location, and it was the only place he could stay in this strange world. After arriving behind the counter in the store, there was a long bench with a corpse that looked exactly like Laud lying on it. That was his corpse. Laud, who was in death god state, was usually unable to be seen by humans, nor could he communicate with society normally. Death god could disguise himself as a human and move about in the modern world as the carrier of the soul. It was an important prop. Who? After entering the remains, Laud stretched and lay on the bench, letting out a sigh of relief. Although it had been more than a year since he transmigrated to Marvel World and became Death God, he was still used to the days when he had a physical body. In the state of soul, Laud could not enjoy delicious food. After all, this was the Marvel World, and there was no Soul Society and Technological Development Department. This Jigai was not made by him, but from his golden finger, Soul King Development System. This system was actually a Bleach mobile game that Laud played in his previous life. After following him to the Marvel World, for some reason, it became a system. The function of this so-called Soul King Development System was actually very simple. There were roughly 3 parts of the lucky draw, the store, and the mission. The first was a lucky draw. As the name implied, there was no need to explain too much. Everyone understood this function, but this system needed a soul. For example, if he found a dead soul and did a soul burial or killed a hollow who had fallen like today, he would obtain souls. Then, according to the quality of their souls, they could be divided into 3 grades, upper, middle, and lower. The second was the store. The system opened a special store every month. It could use the soul to buy some rare items, Zanpakutou, and even the characters in the original work. The third was a mission. The system would issue out some missions from time to time, and it could decide whether or not to accept the mission based on his situation and difficulty. After completing the mission, he would receive a generous reward. For example, his Shinso was actually a Zanpakutou who had been rewarded to him after completing the mission of Death God Awakening a year ago when he had just transmigrated. Overall, the system was realistic. If you want to become stronger, you can only search for the soul, whether good or evil, just by looking at the quality. The soul was just a form of currency. Laud rubbed his temples and said, 1,000 low-grade souls, I finally have enough. Give me 10 consecutive draws to test the waters. He had worked hard for an entire month to kill Hollow and Soul Burial, and that was what he had gained from this. Detected low-grade soul, 1,000. Do you wish to open the shop's lucky draw? Yes. As the familiar interface opened, Kasuke Urahara walked out with a sly smile on his face. Kasuke Urahara. There were 3 lucky draw pools for this mobile game, which correspond to the top, middle, and bottom 3 soul currency respectively, and Kasuke Urahara, this guy was responsible for the low-level soul currency pool. Lod had reason to suspect that the producer of the mobile game had definitely added private goods. Otherwise, why would he choose an uncle? They should choose a beautiful girl. Although he was complaining, Lod was still looking forward to this lucky draw. It was not easy to save up 1,000 souls after several months. Please. Lod put his palms together and closed his eyes to pray, give me something more powerful. Clang. Along with a flash of golden light, 10 transparent cards appeared in Lod's retina. White, low-level spiritual pearl, 5. Blue, White Strike Experience Book 1. Blue, Sword Path Experience Book *1. Purple, Shuanpa Skill Book, Boyd Cicada. Purple, Sword Dao Skill Book, Sword Pressure. White, Shinigami Women's Association 125, Summer Swimsuit Magazine. Purple, Hakuta Skill Book, Single Bone. Gold, Age, Gyoku, Broken Fragments, 5/10,000. Golden, Urahara's Secret Training Grounds, include Restoration Hot Springs. Gold, Zanpakutou, Senbenzakura, Shurkai. 3 gold and 3 purple. Lod's breathing quickened, and his eyes widened. He could not believe that he had drawn it out himself. There was no need to say more about Senbenzakura, Kuchiki Byakuya's Zanpakutou. In addition to Zanpakutou, what made Lod the happiest was actually Urahara's Secret Training Grounds. In the original work, the training ground where Ichigo and Yoruichi were in the Soul Society was built together by Urahara and Yoruichi. Not only was it difficult to discover, but it also had a wide range. There was also a healing hot spring, which was exactly what Lod needed the most at the moment. As for the age, Gyoku fragments? Lod was too lazy to pay attention to it. This thing was rare, but it was too difficult to gather. There were a total of 10,000 fragments. How long would it take to gather them? The other items were also not bad. 3 skill books could make up for the problem of his lack of skills. The worst was the low-level spiritual pearl. With his current strength, the increase in spiritual power would be minimal. Also? Shinigami Women's Association 125, Summer Swimsuit Magazine? Although he was very embarrassed, Lod felt that the magazine was quite good. It recorded all of the Shinigami Women's Association's members in swimsuits. It was simply profitable. This time, he had earned a lot from 10 consecutive draws. Lod said impatiently, System, check personal information. Host, Lod Carl. Bloodline, Death God. Spiritual Pressure Level 6, 5th Seated Officer, 5000/50000. Shurkai, Shinso, Senbenzakura. Bankai, Unlocked. Zanjutsu Level 4, 1000/5000 Sword Pressure. Hakuta Level 4, 1000/5000 Single Bone. Hoho Level 4, 1000/5000 Cicada Shell. Kido, Level 4, 1000/5000, Proficient in Kido below number 40, Bakud, number 61, 6 Rods Prison of Light. Hollow Transformation, Unlocked. Fullbring Technique, Unlocked. Holy Text, Unlocked. Skills, Unlocked. Soul, 0. Item, Jigai, Substitute Shinigami Badge, Limb Repairing Serum, Hell's Butterfly, Memory Replacement, Age, Gyoku, Broken Fragments, 5/10,000. Shinigami Women's Association 125, Summer Swimsuit Magazine, Urahara's Secret Training Grounds. Chapter 4, Discovered. 6th Class Spiritual Power. It was equivalent to the Chief of Gotii 13th, which was the preliminary master of Zanpakutou Shurkai. Although it was not very powerful, in this dangerous Marvel world, it barely has a trace of self-protection ability. Not enough. I am still not strong enough. Laud, who was familiar with the plot, knew very well how deep the water in the Marvel Universe was. It was far from enough for him to live with his current strength. So, in order to survive, Laud decided to lay a trap after careful consideration. And everything that happened tonight was arranged by Laud, a drama called Death God's Debut. The two men in Hell's Kitchen were the main characters that Laud had carefully selected. They were rare humans with high spiritual power and could see Death God. Through the words of the survivor, he attracted the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then he had sufficient reason to intervene and then use the power of this behemoth to complete his goal. With the personality and control of the soy egg, presumably, it would never allow an inexplicable death god to suddenly appear under the nose. S.H.I.L.D. Laud lay on the bench, thinking about what had happened before, and his lips curled into a smile. Let me borrow your strength. In fact, when he first transmigrated, Laud was like the other transmigrators, planning to secretly accumulate strength and wait for the time when his wings were fully developed before appearing in public. However, things went contrary to their wishes. In the past year, after becoming Death God, Laud killed Hollow everywhere and finally understood one thing. Death God had a limit. He killed Hollow slowly and completed the mission of the system. When Thanos came in a few years, his strength would be at the captain level. Although the captain level seemed to be very powerful, in fact, it was still not enough to face the big boss like Thanos. The existence of big boss level absolutely would crush the captain level, so he had to become stronger, or even surpass the boundary of Death God. But time waits for no one. No matter how hard he worked alone, it was impossible for him to reach the big boss level in several years. Therefore, borrowing the strength of others was the best choice for him so far. Apart from that, there was also another reason. In fact, there was another important reason. Laud had wondered why Hollow would appear in the Marvel world. Before he arrived, there was no Hollow in the Marvel world, but after he arrived, Hollow suddenly appeared. It was very strange, wasn't it? He was clearly in the Marvel, and the ownership of the soul after death is controlled by one of the 5 great gods of creation, Death. Then why did these Hollow appear? According to the system's answer, it was because his body contained the power of Soul King, so as he grew stronger, he would cause these souls to fall within a certain range with his body as the foundation. In other words, the reason why Hollow appeared was precisely because of him, the Soul King. Moreover, this was only the beginning. When he became more and more powerful, the range of influence of Soul King would also be greater. At that time, all the dead souls in the United States, the whole world, and even the entire Marvel would be under his jurisdiction. This was undoubtedly snatching the rice bowl of death. One had to know that Death was one of the 5 great creation gods in the Marvel world. It was the embodiment of the concept of death and also the death of all things. However, if such a supreme god suddenly found out that his power was taken away by a weak earthling, what would happen? The answer was obvious. If he were to be discovered by Death, if his own power was too weak, then he would definitely die an extremely ugly death. Let's make an assumption. If Death did not discover it, after all, she was in charge of the death of the entire universe, and it was unlikely that she would notice Earth. Did that mean that Laud would be fine? No. The Earth was very special in the Marvel world. Even if Death did not pay attention to this place, there was still a very terrifying enemy in front of Laud. Hell. One of them was the Lord of Hell, Mephisto, who could also take charge of the dead souls on the earth, and Laud, who was Death God, had the authority to oppose him. In other words, regardless of whether he was willing or not, as long as he's still a Death God, he had to face the Lord of Hell, Mephisto, and Death. Perhaps? This was the so-called, if one wanted to wear a crown, one must carry the weight. Laud, who had inherited the Soul King, was not their match in the first place. Sooner or later, a battle would break out between them. Therefore, in order to survive, Laud had to become stronger as soon as possible. For this, he would do whatever it took. I am really looking forward to it. Laud smiled and said, if the shield knew that there were Death God, Quincy, Soul Society, and Hollow in this world, what kind of reaction would they have? The next morning, the exhausted Coulson and Agent May received orders and went to the Hell's Kitchen to check on the battle that happened here yesterday. Is the report out? Coulson came to the side of the technician and looked at the blocked street. He couldn't help but sigh, it's terrible. A street has been destroyed. The whole street has been destroyed. At the side, Agent May observed for a moment and frowned, judging from the degree of damage on the streets and the situation, it's as if it were cut by some kind of sharp weapon in an instant. Sharp weapon? Cut? Coulson muttered these two words, could it be some kind of high-tech weapon? No. A technician came over and said, from the situation at the scene, there is no high-level energy residue. In other words, it is not caused by high-tech weapons. It's strange. Coulson bent down and carefully looked at the damage on the street. He asked doubtfully, these cuts are very smooth. It's like, they were cut by a sword. Sword? May laughed. Don't joke around. This street is more than 180 meters long. What sword could be this long? Woo. Coulson was silent, his eyes flashing with inexplicable light. Don't come to a conclusion too early. May, you have to know this abnormal situation. It is not the first time we have seen it. May did not object to this. Another technician said, by the way, we checked the surveillance and found that there was another survivor here last night. Oh? Coulson raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, there are survivors? Great, maybe we can get something out of him. I hope so. May shrugged and said, however, I don't have much hope for this. After all, such survivors are usually useless. In a sealed interrogation room, Jack, who was still in the hospital, was taken away by a group of men in black who claimed to be from the FBI. Then, they came all the way here. Who are you? Jack was tied to a chair and shouted in a panic, where is this place? Why are you arresting me? Let me out. Good morning, Mr. Jack. Coulson was wearing a suit. He slowly sat opposite Jack and said, I have a few questions that I need to ask. I hope you can cooperate well. Who are you? Jack struggled and shouted angrily, let me out. This is illegal. Coulson crossed his arms in front of his chest and smiled, Mr. Jack, please don't panic. We are the FBI. We only brought you here to ask a few questions. Fuck. Jack cursed, so what if it's the FBI? I won't answer you. I want to sue you for illegal detention. Please do as you please. Coulson calmly picked up a piece of material and scanned it. Jack Morse, male, 22 years old. He is an outer member of the Penguin Gang. He was in prison for 3 months because of a fight. After he came out, he participated in activities such as selling D-grade goods and kidnapping people. Am I right? You. Jack was shocked speechless. Coulson put down the materials and said lightly, according to these charges, Mr. Jack, you will be sentenced. But if you are willing to cooperate, I can pretend that nothing happened and let you go. Really? Really? Jack subconsciously swallowed his saliva. Really? Let's go. Coulson crossed his arms in front of his chest and said calmly, after all, there are too many hooligans like you. Capturing you is not within the jurisdiction of the FBI. Of course, the premise is that you are willing to cooperate with us. I will cooperate. I will cooperate. Jack stopped struggling and said with a pale face, what do you want to ask? I can tell you. Very good. Mr. Jack. Coulson smiled, trust is the foundation of cooperation between us. It seems that you already understand. Then, please tell me what happened last night? Last night. A trace of fear flashed through Jack's eyes, and he subconsciously trembled, last night. I saw Death God. Coulson, who came out of the interrogation room, had an extremely serious expression. He passed through numerous checkpoints and arrived at the highest level of the shield. Director. Coulson came to the director's office and said seriously, I have something very important to report to you. Again? Nick Fury, the director of the shield, turned his chair and rubbed his temples with his fingers. He said helplessly, tell me, what happened this time? Last night, a battle happened in Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan and destroyed one of the streets. After our investigation, we found a survivor and obtained a piece of information from him. Oh? Nick Fury sensed from Coulson's serious expression that this matter might not be simple. What kind of information is it? Coulson took a deep breath and then said in a low voice, it is information about Death God and Hollow. Thank you for listening. Do not forget to like and subscribe.